Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the show created for you, the armed citizen. Join our hosts and subject matter experts as we talk about guns and gear, practical training and knowledge, Second Amendment issues, and the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Lancaster from Squared Away Customs. I almost said in New Hampshire, but I know you're not. We're not going to disclose where you're at. It's like the super secret alternate layer. So
yeah, not this night. Yeah, no, I'm up in northern Michigan right now.
Well, you would be terrible at witness protection if you were like you just completely told everybody where you were. Whatever, man. Worst secret layer ever. Now everybody knows where it's at. All right.
I'm happy, but I love northern Michigan, and I have a family here, so I'm super happy to send the data out there for all the listeners. That it's a great place to be.
You know, I was thinking to myself just as we got started with this that since you're not on your normal mic setup, you're going to sound a little bit different to our listeners. But
yeah.
This was the episode where my voice might actually rival yours for depth, and it's still not happening. So I don't know. I'm gonna run you through like the chipmunk filter on the audio at some point, just so I feel better about myself.
That at some point. In time.
Yeah,
Go good with my cat earphones.
Yeah. We'll put you on like helium voice for the entire episode, and you'll be annoying. We'll see how that goes. So, all right, man. Well, so we've got a really super exciting episode tonight, as far as I'm concerned, and really as far as my wife concerned. I mentioned before we got started that there was nearly a fight in this house over who was going to be sitting here behind the mic tonight to interview our guest with you. So why don't you do the honors of introducing our fantastic guest this evening?
Yeah, I'm super excited for this episode. We're going to be able to cover a lot of really good topics that are really going to hit home with a lot of our listeners. I think it's really perfect for the demographics that we have listening and the people that we have listening. So super happy to announce that and introduce Tatiana Whitlock, a fellow New Englander, to the show tonight. So welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here broadcasting from Maine, the cold parts of Maine, which is very similar to northern Michigan, which I am frequently there. So yes, thank you for having me on the show.
We are very thrilled to have you here. I think most of our audience might already know who you are. And if they don't know you by name, as I start to describe who you are and where they may have seen you before, I think it'll click immediately, and they'll understand why I'm as excited about this as I am, and why this nearly became a war in my house. But Tatiana, you are one of the faces of Agency Arms in their advertising campaigns. You're one of the agents, if you will.
This is true. I am the only female agent at the moment of the Agency Arms asset group.
Asset group. That is so cool. We need to have a Shooters Nation asset group, Mark. I'm going to make a note for that. So I don't know what we'll do with that, but I hope it's half as cool as the stuff that I've seen you in the advertising, Tatiana. Folks, if you've seen the Agency Arms advertising on the internet or in magazines or what have you, again, Tatiana is the only female agent in the asset group there. So this is fantastic. I'm thrilled to have you here. But not only that, you are a powerhouse in the Second Amendment community as one of the new breed of women leading the charge for our rights and responsible gun ownership and equipping not only women but families and men alike as responsibly armed shooters. And so this is going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm hopefully one of many in this sphere of people that are standing up and not being ashamed of who we are as gun owners, and being happy to introduce new people to this and shed a different perspective against the stereotypes that they think they have what it means to be an American gun owner.
Right. Well, we love tearing down stereotypes, and I tell you what, before we get into that, if it's okay, I want to go over your bio a little bit, and Mark, we kind of tend to assume that a listener coming into the Shooters Nation podcast family may have never even heard of this, any of our guests, right? And so we just kind of want to level set. And Tatiana, if it's okay, I'm going to brag on you for a few minutes. So I'm going to go through your bio. So.
Sure, that's all right. Okay. They can't see me blushing, so it's all good.
Okay, right. Yeah. Well, so here we go, folks. Tatiana works with men, women, and youth to establish a real-world foundation of firearm skills, safety, and situational awareness. She's a dedicated student as well as an instructor, and she travels to pursue training across the country with top names in the industry. Not only this, but she's a mother of two who takes the safety of her family seriously, and she knows that in a worst-case scenario, the first responder on the scene is going to be her. The training that she offers to families and individuals brings the home defense and concealed carrier training mindset out of the square range and into the context of daily life, which is fantastically important. That's what we're all about here. And not only this, so Ms. Whitlock is an NRA BPI RSO and refused to be a victim instructor, in addition to being a featured host and instructor on Trigger Time TV, airing on the Pursuits channel. And Tatiana, you're also COO of marketing at GAT Marketing in Michigan, and that's a firearms industry marketing agency. And also, as if that's not enough, you're director of training at Howell's Indoor Range and Shooting Academy in Gray, Maine, and the contributing author for numerous industry publications and the NRA Women's Network. So, man, how do you even have time for anything?
Oh, sleep is overrated. And to add to that, one little piece, I'm also director of training for A Girl and a Gun, which is the nation's fastest growing women's shooting organization. And it's an incredible program to be a part of, especially to be the national director of training for thousands of women across the country.
That is fantastic. That is a huge responsibility. And I'm sure you take that very, very seriously. A friend of ours, a friend of the show, Tiffany Johnson, and you were actually you host a segment on the Bill Frady Lock and Load, or Locked and Load. Is it Lock and Load? I'm screwing this up. Lock and Load. Yeah. His show. There's so many things I try to listen to and I can never get the names right. I talked about this last week. I can meet somebody and then later I'm like, hey, you guy, how's it going? Right. But I'll remember you, promise. But no, you're friends with our friend Tiffany Johnson. So that's fantastic. And you were on a show with her recently. So
yes, she joined me for an episode of The Weaponized Woman, and we had a blast. I adore her.
Yeah.
What a powerhouse, and what an incredible mind. She's one of the most articulate people in the 2A advocacy community. She is a real gem.
She is very articulate. She's the complete opposite of me tonight. So I'm terrible at this tonight for some reason. I'll find my legs. I'll get them under me here in a minute. So we want to be respectful of your time. There's a whole lot of things that we want to talk about. This is going to be fun. I think that I kind of loosely titled this Getting to Know Tatiana Whitlock. And that's probably in the small hope that you'll come back on. And probably the only way that I'll get to live for another week is if you might come back on later and do a ladies show with my wife and Mark's wife. They like to take over the mic occasionally and show us how it's really done. So,
oh, absolutely. I would be honored to.
Wonderful.
That's how we get our ratings, right?
It is how we get our ratings. It's how I figure out how not to suck at being a radio host, is to let my wife do it. And then I say, oh, well, that's what it looks like right there. So, yeah. Before
we go too off the path here, I'd like to, if you could maybe give us a minute about The Girl and the Gun and talk about what that's all about for the listeners. And I know you're super passionate about it. So let's make sure we give that a few minutes. I think that would be great.
Thank you. I've been a supporter of A Girl and a Gun for the past 5 years. They invited me to be a keynote speaker at their second annual national conference, where between 300 and now 400 women from Alaska to Maine to all corners of the U.S. come together in Texas for this massive training event. It is one of the most spectacular training experiences I've ever been a part of. And from the minute that I walked into that environment with that community, I was overwhelmed by the culture that they'd created, which is I wish it was just, this was the culture of, the firearms community. It's an incredibly supportive network of people for all interests, passions, ages, physical abilities, you name it. I think the eldest woman that I taught there was 87 years old, and the youngest was 12. And we have everyone in the middle. I've actually taught a legally blind lady how to shoot. She could echolocate the target. I mean, there is no barrier to enjoying a range experience and facilitating a safe program while you're in this community. It is 100% about education and the individual. I admired them so much for that and that alone right out of the gate, because I see so many other groups, organizations, not just female specific, that are really driven by a retail, their purpose in life is a retail experience. And, we all have families to feed, so I'm not knocking them, but my passion is education. So what the A Girl and a Gun program was doing really spoke to me. So I participated with them for 5 years, joining them at national conference as a guest instructor, where 30 to 60 other instructors from all disciplines of the firearms community come together to put on 4-hour blocks of instruction over between 7 and 3 days, depending on how much people want to participate. And it was just last year, leading up to just before SHOT Show, Robin Sandoval and Juliana Crowder gave me a call. And they were like, hey, so we've been thinking about this for a while. How would you feel about formally coming on board? Because our prior director of training is retiring. Would you be willing to join us in that capacity? And I pulled the car over, and they didn't see me do the happy dance in the car, but I was like giggling, keep it together, T. This is Tony. Don't let them hear the excitement in your voice. I was like, absolutely, of course. How could you turn down such an incredible opportunity to be a part of this, not just as a guest, but as an actual part of this? And over the past year, we've been able to create and formulate a whole curriculum. We're nurturing a group of female instructors to be really high quality, very, very certified in multiple disciplines across multiple platforms that are nationally recognized, not just in firearm safety, but in medicine. And, can you put that tourniquet on? One of the initiatives we've had this year is to get as many of our members through the Stop the Bleed program as possible. So, we've, at this point, there's hundreds of women through if not thousands, across the country since April of this year, where we launched this, to now, that have gone through that program because of the A Girl and a Gun chapters that have put them on. So it's little things like that are snowballing. We're putting out more knowledge, more information, and it's really to create a real strong base knowledge for any female or any person truly interested and joining and participating at the range, be it competition, home defense, or just for the pure joy of plinking.
What do you see as being one of the key drivers for a student that wants to come into that program and take advantage of it? It sounds like what you were describing a moment ago was there's not any one type of person. You've got a variety of ages and demographics. It's across the spectrum, right? But is there one thing that seems to drive these people into the program to learn from you all?
So I think what's driving people to join A Girl and a Gun over maybe some of the organizations, or if they're looking for something, is, one, birds of a feather. So my first program was a women's only program because I didn't know where to begin. So I was a Google search away from finding a NRA Women on Target clinic that's launched the last 7 years of my life. Who saw that coming? Not me or my family or anyone I knew. So it's a way to facilitate. And the other piece of it is, the name A Girl and a Gun is a little less formal and a little less, intimidating. And so it's a really easy icebreaker. I don't have to be a consummate professional. I can just be honest with what I don't know. And that sparks a really natural conversation that then facilitates things. And it takes that fear, that anxiety, that hesitation, and instills in its place a feeling of acceptance and being welcomed. And that starts an incredible chain reaction where they'll go from being ready to cry walking into the range to 2 hours later, they can't get enough. They're signed up for everything they can get their hands on because it's attainable and it's doable. And that's the mission. We're not making little baby ninjas here. We're making strong, confident participants and women here. That's the goal.
Right. that is so sorely lacking in the industry at large. And it's not just for women. And I'm sure that is intimidating, because I think that I referred to the 2A community earlier as being somewhat, and this was pre-recording, pre-show, but somewhat misogynistic over the decades. It was very much the male-driven, male-centric. Even the advertising was very much aimed at men, and if women were featured in the ads, it was never in a complimentary means, right? But the training industry at large is finally starting to turn the corner, it seems like, where we don't expect you to come in and know everything. And hopefully even men going to predominantly male classes are being encouraged to not know all the answers and be willing to admit that I don't know how to do this. I'm not good at this. I need help. And it's good to see that, right? But the industry needs more of it. And so that's fantastic that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, it's been a very powerful tool to bring lots of people to the range and give them a very positive first experience.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like even like with my wife, I mean, it wasn't a Girl on a Gun sanctioned event or anything like that, but like her first class, that was a turning point for her, being a concealed carry person and a trainer and somebody, a student of the gun, so to say, was when she took the first all girls class. And that was the switch. No matter how many times we've been to the range, she didn't care. And it was just kind of like she wanted to like it, but she just didn't. And she just didn't feel comfortable, and she just didn't feel confident. And me training her was just a nightmare, as we've spoke about many times on the phone. And as much as I wanted to be good at it, what I mean, and be the best that I could be to teach her, it just wasn't working, Sure. And boy, when she took that first class with one of our guests, Ian Strimbeck, she took that first all females class, and it was just like you said, Tatiana. I mean, she was just head over heels, like so excited, and like, when can I go again? And then she ended up like knocking like 4 more out that summer or something, and it was just it was an absolute turning point for her. And I can't stress enough how important it is, like, just to not get trained by your husband.
If you want to stay married, that's
right.
That's wise sage advice there. But the whole topic of women's only programs, that's a polarizing conversation in and of itself, and not to go down that rabbit hole. And I think one of the things that I'm also very proud about A Girl and a Gun is that while it is, a women's only event, it's that you've got an opportunity to come and just be with a bunch of women who share the same questions, they giggle about the same things, they laugh at the same jokes, and it's a relaxed environment. But it is also intended to create a shooter out of the participant, a shooter who feels intrigued by taking a class, regardless of if it's women's only or not, because of the material and the information she's going to get from it. And so we're seeing a really beautiful thing evolve out of this, where we're getting emails and text messages from these women who have decided now that, hey, guess what? I don't need a women's only program. I enjoy it. I want a women's only program, but I don't need it. It's not the only place that I can go to be successful in an educational environment. So they're going to Steve Fisher classes. They're going to participate at TACCon. I was a speaker at TACCon this year. There were like 12 A Girl and a Gun women there. It's the first. They were bold, and they did it, and they rocked it out. They shot well, and they were incredibly safe on the range. And I kept getting people coming up to me going, "They're yours, aren't they?" I'm like, yes, they are.
That's awesome.
Yes, they're amazing, aren't they? And yeah, they really are. So these women are going out and they're representing very, very well as strong shooters.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think what you've described is that there's something special that happens there in that closed community where it's safe, the barriers are lowered, and they get to learn. But then they also get the confidence that says, I can do this as well, if not better, than any man out there. And, I see this all the time. My wife is a far more accurate, far better shooter than I am. And it's because she pays attention to the details and doesn't go onto the range with ego that says I have to prove to everybody else watching that I am capable and competent and the alpha, right? And so I see this all the time with women that shoot. They shoot better than the guys that they're with, and the guys look like complete knuckle draggers when they're trying to, well, you just need to tighten your grip up and whatever. And it's like, if you just let her alone, she's out shooting you, homie. Just watch what she's doing. So yeah, it's fantastic that you're doing that. What about, do you have like moms and daughters coming? Do you have like a minimum age for somebody that wants to attend one of these conferences?
The conferences have specific age requirements. Of course, we're talking about 400 people. So we really can't have 3-year-olds on the range.
Sure.
That's
sure.
not going to be appropriate. But when it comes to the events themselves, I mean, my daughter is a member of our main chapter and she's 9.
No, awesome.
And she's quite the little pistol shooter. And when it comes to breaking the ice with the new ladies who are a little hesitant, they're emotionally charged because this is new to them and
right.
not sure yet. I'll have my daughter do the demos. And when you see a 9-year-old conduct herself just cool, calm, and collected, not rushing, taking her time, getting her hits, being very meticulous with her safety and her performance and how she handles this thing, everybody just turns and looks at each other like, well, okay, then let's do this. No big deal. Like, we got this. Art's totally attainable.
Right.
It's not me who, I go full ninja mode as soon as I make contact with the gun and then, put it down and I'm all happy again. But it's when you have that opportunity to see a youth shooter set an incredible example, it's a wonderful part of the learning process, especially to break those nervous jitters.
Yeah, no,
I can do it.
That's awesome.
I can do it. Yeah.
Well, I am so glad that we've got people like you out there leading the charge and making it accessible to a completely different group of people. And as a dad and a husband, you're helping me because my fears are that my wife and my daughters are not going to know how to take care of themselves and protect themselves if I'm not around. And people like you are changing that equation and making sure that they can in a way that I can't. Right. I can take my wife and my daughter to the range, but it's completely different when women are among sisters, it's a completely different thing. And I hear this from my wife all the time. And it's just kind of like, it's a woman thing. You won't ever understand. And I have to trust that she's right. And I see the results. She is right. So yeah, you're doing a great thing with that. So I've got a question for you, and I have to ask this before we get too far into it, because this is one of the listener questions. It's a listener favorite thing that they want us to always ask, and I'll forget if I don't ask now. Our listeners love to know what our subject matter experts carry, right? They want to know. Yeah. And I've kind of got this thing. I'm tracking it right now with Mark. He knows, the statistic I'm tracking, Mark. So what do you carry, Tatiana? And how do you carry it?
I carry everything cross draw appendix.
Okay.
No matter what it is, that's where I carry. I'm tiny. I'm not a big person. I don't have a lot of real estate to work with. It's very hard for me to conceal strong side, regardless of what make or model it is. I just don't have enough material to work with.
Okay.
And I've got a body type hourglass thing going on, which sounds great until you try to conceal a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a nightmare. So,
yeah.
I carry cross-draw appendix, whether it's the Glock 43 from Agency Arms with the TLR 6 on it, because I love that combination. It's a fantastic combination. Or I'll carry the Nighthawk Customs T4 because I am a 1911 junkie. I cannot help it. I love me a 1911. I'll also carry, especially winter, the bigger gun, the better, because we live in colder climates. So I've got many more concealment options. So go big in the wintertime.
Right.
I will carry another Agency Arms Glock 19 with the Surefire X300, and if I feel like I want a red dot with an RMR on top or an aim point.
Yeah.
Whatever you're in the mood for.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So go big or go home in the wintertime and all the pew-pews you can.
Mark, you win that one.
Yep.
I
was confident with that one.
Yeah, you were confident. I knew the odds. I knew going into that one the odds were against the M&P, but that's all right. I'm like you, Tatiana. I carry a variety of things. I've got my 1911s. I love them. They tend to stay at home more often, but I don't know. Sometimes I sneak a Glock into the studio just to make Mark happy and show him on camera that, hey, look, it's Glock night. But oh well. It's all right, Mark. My day's coming. We'll get an M&P person on here sooner or later.
I doubt it. I mean, it's bound to happen.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen sooner or later. It just admit it. They're sexy guns. They are. They're just as good in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
Just hashtag not a Glock. So, All right. Well, I'm not a Glock hater. I love my Glocks. Well, so let's kind of go back into the conversation about that new wave of female shooters and Second Amendment advocates and stuff. When we look at me being a consumer, I'm flipping through the magazine, I turn the page, and there's an Agency Arms advertisement, and there you are, and the character that you play as as one of their agents for marketing, right? It's very intense, and you look like somebody who could just take care of business, and I'm absolutely positive you can anyway, right? But that ad, they do a fantastic job, and you do a fantastic job of portraying "Don't mess with me," right? Mm-hmm. That is really neat because you've managed to do something with the marketing that a lot of gun companies have struggled with over the years, and that is to provide a strong female character, a strong female presence in the advertising, with that blends that strength with being attractive, right? But doesn't go after the low hanging fruit of the gun bunny. And on your own website, you talk. There's a video that you did for the NRA, the new energy video. And in that, you talk about that phenomena, and you very clearly state, the armed women in the United States are not gun bunnies, and we're not armed biker chicks. Not that some of them aren't, but that's not the message that you're after. And so you're providing this alternative message that I think is pretty impressive and pretty darn important. Can you talk about that a little bit and what drives you in that sense and why that is important to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a mother. I have a daughter, and I want to set an example for her for what I hope she's going to aspire to be. So I will never be caught in a bikini with a 50 cal. That is not something that portrays the powerful, independent, strong, intelligent person I want her to be. And that's my job as a parent, is to emulate that, to be that as closely as I can, and to set an example that I hope she surpasses in her life. So, those types of aesthetics and that type of culture is not in line with my personal morals or my family values. So it was never an option for me, and it will never be an option for me. I come from a world that is not the firearms community. I grew up in a household, we had shotguns, but gun culture wasn't something I could say that we embraced. We had a couple of 410s and 20 gauges and 12 gauges, and we'd do the, weekend warrior, sportsman a couple times a year and go duck hunting. Right. That was what we did. And that was for a spell up into my early teens. So I was familiar with firearms, but my family is made up of professionals, artists, fine artists, musicians, engineers. These are people who have 200 patents to their name, or in the Country Music Hall of Fame. These are incredible professionals, and they were inspiring. And they really did instill in me, you must be and personify the strength that you wish to have. Do you know what I mean? You have to have that. But they also, and it's part of our family culture, to be very intense with what you're passionate about. So everything that, we dive into as an entire family, this goes outside of just my immediate family. It seems to be genetic with the cousins and everything. I mean, we go full immersion into it. It's just how we do things. And if you fall in love with it, you go continental shelf deep at it.
Wow. Yeah.
And, I looked at the firearms community, and I dove into this 7 years ago. So this is still fairly new. So it is attainable to go from 0 to 160 in a fairly short period of time. But that full immersion is the way to do it. So I walked into this environment, and I looked around, and I looked at the advertising, and I went to my first SHOT Show, and I saw all the booth bunnies and the booth babes and all of that. And that didn't work for me. That's not who I am or what I am about. And I certainly wouldn't want to embrace that and have my daughter look back or my son look back and see that's mom. No, that's not going to be. I'm a mother before I'm anything else in this world. So I also think that personally isn't a way that I'm going to do the greatest good. I am not going to reach the most people by emulating that. The way that I'm going to reach the most people and prove that these skill sets are attainable is by being me. So when you look at those ads, I was asked to just bring some stuff, and that's me. That look is just me. We didn't have a stylist. That's just, he brings something cool. All right, cool. That's that's how we roll. And it matches the agency brand nicely, which is partly why I think they brought me on board, because, that's in sync. But I want those qualities. I want a level of intensity in what I do. I want a level of professionalism in what I do. And I think that you don't have to compromise your femininity as a woman to participate in the firearms sphere. You can maintain that, but you can do it without exposing a lot of flesh. And you can do it without compromising your integrity. And you can do it by flexing the mental muscle more than everything else. So that's the long version of why I will not do the bikini shoot.
Right.
And
no,
I'm down many of those offers.
Well, you said that, so that's you, that's you in the agency ad. And it's funny because again, you look at it, and if you don't have a voice to put with the face and a personality to put with the face, it looks like this is a woman that could give John Wick a run for his money. Right. And so, but it does somehow, it looks, you can just tell, smart, intelligent, driven, intense, armed, dangerous, fierce. And these are all the characteristic traits that I want for my daughters. I want them to be that. And that's what my wife wants them to be. And I know, Mark, that's what you and Kristen want for your kids, is that you want them to be smart and fierce and stand on their own merits and not just eye candy, And so that's been the frustrating thing for me as a dad and as a father to go to the SHOT Shows and things like that. And you see the booth bunnies and you think, wow, you could do so much more with this moment of truth, this moment of exposure that you have to, the passerby, and especially if they're not completely invested or even bought into the whole gun community. And you've chosen to do that. And it just seems like a missed opportunity. So I'm really happy now that I see more. You see more celebrity shooters. And if the women are there, they're known in the industry and they're wearing, the industry colors for whatever team they're associated with. And you can point to that and say, that's awesome. That's a positive role model.
Yes, it is. We're seeing a shift away from that culture and towards one that makes the female shooter a professional and not just a hood ornament. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank goodness for that. Yeah. It does make it more accessible and it's more relevant. And I think that, well, Mark, we talked about this. So that's the thing that we kind of, if we had to say this is the cornerstone of Shooters Nation, it's that it's relevant, that it's something that's meaningful, relevant, it's accessible to everybody, it resonates with our audience. Is that we're not high-speed door kickers, we're not the tactical guys that are kicking in doors on drug houses in the middle of the night. Thank God for them. It's not us, but
none of that is any good to our listeners.
None of that's any good to our listeners, because that's not their life.
If that's what we're doing, then why are we? It's not helping anybody.
Right.
And the whole goal is to just to somewhat be the catalyst to get these people this information and to help our listeners. And that's the whole idea of this.
So you alluded in our conversation before the show that you could completely go down that rabbit hole with us if we wanted to talk about that, making it relevant and not being the high speed door kicker, spatial door gunner guys. Right. Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, I love my favorite, the Disneyland of training for me is multiple, like up to 11 days or more of intensive 14 to 16 hour training days in the shoot house with 2-man to 8-man team. I love that. That is mental chess. It doesn't get any more exciting for me than that. That is awesome. And yeah, you're decked out head to toe in multicam and face shields and body armor and all the things you have to train safely and effectively in that environment with people who do that professionally, who you've joined for a program. Now, there's a time and a place for that. And that's not something that very many people have the opportunity to be invited to be a part of or have access to. And I've been very, very fortunate to be able to peek behind that curtain and just dip my toe in that water as a civilian. And it's been a real blessing and offered immense amounts of insight into how I present information. And what that has done has shown me that as a civilian, there is so much relevancy in what I learned there, but not in the way that you may expect. It is all about how you think, how you see what's happening around you, how you're able to manage your emotions, how you're able to cope with the chemical cascade of stress. And having the experiences with the firearm in your hands to learn where and when it's appropriate to utilize and put it to work, that means something to me. I am the only armed person in a household of 5. I have 2 older parents, 2 small children. We all live, we're Italian, multi-generational is how we go. And, it comes down to me. So there's a lot of moving parts in my household. It's not just going to be me alone at the range. It's going to be me in a household full of people I love that are moving around with the chaos of something bad if it's going down. Right. So, there's the quote unquote tactical Timmies out there that want to play tactical fantasy band camp, as Steve Fisher likes to say, in their home environment. And I feel that's inappropriate because the SOPs that apply to law enforcement, that apply to SWAT, that apply to Navy SEALs versus Marines versus Coasties, right? All of them have a different SOP and rules of engagement. And while those skill sets are absolutely vital for their survival in those environments, what's vital for my survival in mine? And what pieces of that translate? That's ultimately what it comes down to for me. Right. And how do you bridge the gaps between that super cool, awesome ninja camp and going and shooting bullseyes at 25 yards and then going home and storing your home defense gun and tucking your kids into bed and locking the doors at night? How do you stitch those pieces together? And there really is not a very clean way or a prescribed route to do that. It's what's relevant for you in your home. What do you have for tools in your home? What kind of scary things are you prepared to face in your home and in your community? I mean, let's face it, some people I had 4 phone calls last month from people that I work with in our little range up here in Maine at Howells, who have had home invasions, whether they were home when it happened or they weren't and they came home to find that it had gone down. These are 4 people that I know in 30 days that this has happened to. And they're all in rural environments on lakeside communities and they're seasonal residents. And so the home break-ins are happening there. So what is your community threatened with? What are you prepared to face in that moment? And be real about where you're at with that, what tools you have, what skills you have, and how much your family is prepared around you. Because as fun as it is to go and do a breach and entry and room clearing and flow and all this awesome to dig your corners and all the cool kid stuff with a team of 5. And I'm like, my team of 5 is going to be made up of a 77-year-old man, a 62-year-old lady, and a 7 and 8-year-old me. Not going to work out. Right. Not the same. Not the same room pound clearing experience. So, you can go full fantasy with it because it's fun and that's entertainment. And then you can be very, 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 rubber to the road. Let's be honest. Let's take a real look at things. And, it may appear and sound to be a lot drier, but honestly, it's so much juicier. There's so much more to talk about. Discussions are so much more involved. They really hit home. We very rarely go through the basic handgun or intermediate handgun for self-defense, safety brief, where there is a lot of visualization on bridging the gap between the range and where you're going to take this when you go home, where we don't have a couple of folks, have to take a time out because it hit home and it hit them right in the feels. Right. And man, I've got to tell you, those people, they shoot lights out for the rest of that program. Yeah. Because it means something. Right. It means something deeper. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've talked about the I've called it the tactical dude ranch experience, right? Where you get to go roll around in the dirt and the tactical band camp, that cracks me up. I like that one too. But there are plenty of things, there are plenty of opportunities to go do that and roll around in the dirt and have somebody take pictures of you and you can show your coworkers when you get back to work on Monday. And yeah, sure. I mean, if you can afford it and you want to do it, go, I guess. But what we're seeing more with our listener base and definitely is more relevant with us and our families is exactly what you're describing. It's the reality driven, point driven training that is it's not to be flashy and to give you that dude ranch experience. It's to equip you to protect yourself and to protect your family. Mm-hmm. And it is different. It is very different. And it's a very high calling to do that. I can understand why a student would have to take a moment and deal with the emotions. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I set you up for some tear jerkers. I'm kind of mean like that, but it's in a good way. It really, we don't, the programs that I teach are founded in context.
Right.
As much as humanly possible. And we talk about call a spade when it's an artificial thing, or if it's a range specific technique, and where we're building and breaking good and bad habits throughout the whole process.
That's awesome.
Because, I think the biggest takeaway that many folks have when they come, and I get this in emails all the time, is there's a series of exercises where I have to break a very interesting habit. And without giving away too much of the punchline, I'll just put it to you like this. You don't realize that every time you've gone to the range, you've been babysat. You've had someone that was there to watch you, to make sure that you're okay. You've got a range safety officer. You've got an environment that is designed to absorb those projectiles. You have a set of rules and a set of doctrine that are there to make sure everyone is safe and we don't create problems or hurt things and people that shouldn't be. And you have an instructor many times who is there to absolutely call you out when you're doing something wrong and tweak little things. You also probably haven't realized that you've really only ever gone to get your gun when you've been given permission to do so.
Yeah.
Your stimuli to trigger the movement to go to get your gun comes from an external, not an internal source. Right. So we break that in these programs. And yes, the classes are structured. It is not a free-for-all paintball war by any means. But the idea is that if I can give you the mental and emotional power to make decisions based on what you know and what you see and what's happening around you, that you're going to make the decision about how many rounds you need to shoot and how many places and where you're going to make those. I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm going to give you the ability to make the decisions. That, to me, is building a responsibly armed person, not somebody that can reload and get their splits and all of that cool kid stuff. That's awesome. Right. And that's valid, vital stuff. But that doesn't make me feel safe walking through a mall or going to a movie with you. I want to know that you could make really good decisions and that you and I could talk and communicate when the world is melting down around us. That's what means something. That's my goal, is to give as much of that as I can in, an 8-hour course.
Right. That's powerful. That is really powerful.
So many more moving parts than I think people realize. And when you think about like the dynamic of your situation with the 5 people in the house and you're the one with the gun, like, take a second and think about the moving parts and how dynamic of a situation that has got to be. You know what I mean? That is way more advanced than most any of you are doing on a square range anytime. You know what I mean? And to put all of that in play and have the plan and to make it work seamlessly is a challenge for sure.
Well, you gotta put yourself in the cauldron of training. The crucible of training, good training to make you think through these things so that you can default to that level of training in a bad experience. And we've talked about this before, and William April mentioned it, in his time with us, that these encounters are measured in seconds, and you don't rise to the occasion. You default to what you've programmed into your head ahead of time. And, it's not a 2-dimensional range. It's not a piece of paper that's hanging there waiting for you to square up just perfectly and get the right sight picture and all that stuff. It's a living, breathing, aggressive person that's trying to hurt you or your family. And they're not going to pause for you to collect yourself and figure it out.
The one that always comes to mind with me is I think the Practically Tactical episode with Jared Reston.
Oh yeah.
When he talks about his encounter with that individual that shot him and he ended up shooting back and so on and so forth. But he told that story and it took about 90 minutes for him to tell that story. And I think Jesse asked at the end, now Jared, like you just told us this whole story, but like what did start to finish? What did this whole, what was the timeline? Like how much time did this whole thing take? And you're thinking to yourself 15 minutes, 20 minutes, somewhere there. Right. And he's like about 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah. It's 15 to 20 seconds after he put hands on the guy. Yeah.
Mind blown. You know what I mean? It's like so much data was given and so much went through his head and so much happened and all this. And it was like, it was just shocking the way that came out right at the end of that 90 minutes. It's just like 15 seconds. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And without training and without the classes that you're doing, Tatiana, it's like trying to get in a car and drive it, having never done that before, and then swerve to avoid a wreck, because because we drive daily. Most of us do, at least. We drive daily many miles over a lifetime of experience. We've kind of, now we just automatically adjust our course, and we swerve to avoid hazards, and we can learn to read traffic, and we can kind of predict when something's going to go wrong and brake ahead of time, etc. Right? But if we don't invest that same amount of effort, or at least some effort like that, into our firearms training, then we're just expecting to be able to rise to the occasion, and it just doesn't work that way. So,
well, you hit the nail on the head. I use the driving analogy a lot, especially with women who've been told they can't clear a malfunction because they're a woman and it's just too complicated.
Oh,
right?
my gosh.
No. The person who told you that doesn't know how to teach this. So it's just disregard that. It's really not that hard. It's harder to park your car in the city than it is to clear a malfunction. How many times? But it doesn't have to be pretty, okay? It may be a multiple point turn to get in there, but you can still parallel park the car, right? You drove to the range, right? Which means you took a very potentially dangerous object, filled it with family, people you love, and you got on the highway and you went through urban areas. You obeyed the rules. You stopped when you were supposed to. You hopefully obeyed the speed limit. You had 360-degree situational awareness, all right? And you have the experience with that piece of equipment to trust yourself that you can be safe with it and hit the brakes or the gas based on what you see coming down the road. Right. It is the same exact thing with a firearm.
Oh, this is fun. All right. It's surprising to me, once again, even though we're 26 episodes into this, Mark, that we're at the halfway point and we need to take a break. And I'm flabbergasted, but this is the way it happens. Tatiana, can you bear with us for a few minutes? We'll do a commercial break and we'll come back. And I've been jotting down things we want to talk about. Mark, you and I both want to hear Ms. Whitlock talk about home defense plans in the dynamic situation of having kids and family members involved, right?
I got a couple of good shotgun questions, too.
Shotgun questions? Man, we got everything in this
shotgun,
episode.
But like quick, like rattle off. Like quick answer shotgun.
Well, I thought you were gonna we were gonna go full John Wick for
she was
for
all
real.
Excited. She's like,
right?
shotgun questions.
Shotgun questions, yeah.
I just got a 1301. Let's do this.
Right, yeah. I feel like now I have to come up with a shotgun question as well. You got me all excited. Now I'm sad. All right. Well, folks, stick with us. We'll be back here in just a minute, and we'll continue with Miss Tatiana Whitlock. Stay tuned. Hey, folks, David here. Did you know that there is more to the Shooters Nation than this podcast? Mark and I are working hard to knit together a community of well-informed, responsibly armed citizens who are well prepared to face the worst days of their lives. We would like to invite you to join us and the other listeners on our various social media outlets and become an active part of the Shooters Nation community. You can find us on Instagram as @ShootersNationRadio. And if Facebook is your thing, you can find us there at facebook.com/ShootersNation. While you're there, be sure to click on the link to join our Facebook Shooters Nation community. And as always, you can head over to shootersnation.com for more listener resources. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shooters Nation podcast. Mark and I are here with Miss Tatiana Whitlock. Mark, you wanted to come back with a shotgun question, and again, I'm sad we're not talking about a shotgun. You just
no, it's not a shotgun question. It's not a shotgun question.
Okay,
but it's just a quick one. That's really going to be a quick answer that I know after some past episodes that people want to know. Do you wear a belt when you carry a gun?
Yes.
Thank you. Next.
You are going to get me in so much trouble, man. Yeah. No,
yes,
I mean,
I own a holster company and I battle this every day. Yeah. And I'm just like, in my opinion, there's no way to 100% safely carry a gun without a belt, in my opinion.
You're going to make some compromises.
Yeah.
You're going to make compromises, and you have to be willing to work with those compromises to make it truly successful. Tiffany is a great example of someone who goes beltless carry very well. The woman carries 2 guns. Most people suffer and struggle to carry one. I was to witness this amazing human being whip out 2 guns. I didn't even know she had one on.
Right.
And she does it beltless carry. It supports her body type. Different body types, especially with women, will dictate the carry. It'll dictate what type of belt, the rise of the pant to make the belt successful. I mean, I give a 4-hour lecture on concealed carry in the modern American woman. And we dive into belts. Beltless and off body are a huge world to talk about, especially when it comes to women. Guys that don't wear belts, I don't know why you don't wear a belt. So
no.
I can speak from the women's perspective, but yes, personally, I do wear a belt. It's a choice that I make. I'm happy to make the wardrobe considerations to make sure I can.
Yeah, I think that's really the thing, right? Is that it's the pants and the belt loop, and that's really what Tiffany and Kristen and Sandy were talking about in that episode, Mark, was just the frustration that finally some of the clothing manufacturers are getting back around to the fact that, hey, women wear belts or would like to. And for the longest time, it seemed like women's fashion. I remember, in the 80s and such, looking at, the stuff that my mom wore, the belt loops were about a half an inch tall. And it's because you were threading a decorative thing through, and it wasn't a belt. It was an accessory. So, the guys that don't wear belts, I apologize on behalf of the male species for that, because it's never the ones that should. It's always the ones that shouldn't, and they're generally bending down to get something off of the bottom shelf at the store, and nobody wants to see that. No one, guys listening, no one wants to see that. All right. So that was a good shotgun question. I don't know. One more. What do you think about off body carry? Is there a place for it? Is there? I mean, we don't have to go down the rabbit hole, but
yes, there is a time and a place for off body carry. It is much more complex than people think that it is. It requires an extremely well thought out plan. You have to have meticulous personal habits with your handling of that off-body carry solution. And that is even before we get to drawing effectively from it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the hardest place to successfully carry is off-body. Yeah. And I don't care what color the pocketbook, purse, backpack, gadget that claims it's a concealed carry bag, in air quotes, is. Good luck. It's not going to be graceful. It's going to add time and complexity to accessing the firearm. And then if you have kids in your life, that is a whole other nightmare. And like I said, personal habits, you have to be a very OCD, meticulous person to off-body carry successfully and well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you're right. I always think about the fact that, again, it's called a gunfight for a reason. It's a fight. And we cannot assume that we're going to have all that time and space and somebody else not trying to interfere with us getting it out of a bag. And I've carried off body before in a sling bag because it was the only way to do so discreetly in a particular environment, but it's not ideal. I don't like it, but yeah.
Well,
okay.
Cocktail dresses, you've only got so many options.
You'll never catch me in one of those, but
we won't judge.
Right.
Lies.
Yeah, lies, all lies. No, man, it's not going to happen. I haven't been using the rower.
Holster with an M&P.
I haven't been using the rower enough to fit into a cocktail dress anytime soon. So not going to happen. Not at all.
Something just struck me, and you've been mentioning this. We're kind of changing gears a little bit.
All right, change gears.
But you keep mentioning the kids. And it just struck me that last year, I think I added it up, and I think it was somewhere between 110 and 120 hours of firearms training I took last year. And I know many of my instructors well enough to say that I think out of all of them that I trained with last year, only one of them has a kid.
Wow.
And then I started thinking about the industry. And it doesn't seem like, maybe more trainers than I'm sure. But it seems like a lot of them are younger, non-parent men, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that your life experience and the dynamics that you are familiar with have naturally progressed you into the spear point of training and the family orient that you've landed upon, right? And I mean, this is why, I mean, where we want to go with this conversation as of right now. And I think that it's too bad more aren't in that realm, I guess, because it's I think a very wide, and as I think we spoke before the interview, I mean, it's something that more of us would use than probably in a parking lot. Home invasions, stuff like that, are probably going to be more prominent than any other type of gun needing situation. And I'm just now it's just hitting me. That's like, man, most of the kid aspect is so huge to me. And I think that if we can steer the conversation into the homes and take care of your family and the children and all of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about that. Let's talk about home defense with kids present. What can you tell us there? How can you make us smarter in that aspect?
Well, I think the first step is to be very realistic about your family. I see so many people, get off the X drills and all of this stuff. If I'm somewhere and I am presented with something that is in proximity to me that I cannot evade or avoid it with my children in tow, I have to fight where I stand. Mm. So all of those get off the X, that's great, but there's no getting off the X. The most thing that I'll do is throw my kids in between cars to get them behind something solid so that I'm the only thing exposed. I don't want to die in a pile of my children. I want to make sure that I protect them. But I also have to be very cognizant of the fact that there is no one technique, drill, philosophy, protocol to fit them all. We've got, the bigger your family, the more variables, the more complex and complicated it's going to be. The best thing that I have been told, that I have experienced, that I've worked with families with, is have the family conversation as a family. And if your family unit has a regular dialogue that you've worked into your family's just culture, your kids, your elders are going to be more prepared to take direction and not go deer in the headlights when things go bad. So I have a very good friend whose husband was just killed in a tragic car accident. He's a first responder, incredible American, 30 years as a fireman, EMS, EMT, SWAT doc. I mean, incredible man, very tragic loss. And my daughter and I attended the funeral services. And my good friend, who's the wife, came up to me, and they have 3 little kids. And she said, before we all went in together as a family for the service, she said, I just want you to know that the kids know that if anything happens, they're to go to you. They're to go find you. That's a conversation that family has had with their children wherever they have gone. If something happens, this is what I expect you to do. So if your family members know what's expected, they know what to do, they've been given directive, and things go bad, they're not going to look to you as the only problem solver there and cling to you like stage 5 leg clingers, all right? Because what do drowning people do?
Right.
They try to climb up the rescuer and they drown them too.
Right.
So if you cannot create that environment for your family, if you can talk through this scenario, hey guys, we're going to the mall. Let's just be real. If something were to happen, what would you do? All right. Well, I want you to make sure that you stick with grandma and grandpa, right? I want to make sure that if I put you somewhere, you stay, you don't move. Okay. Those are the types of things that very baseline. We're not talking ninja stills here. We're not talking Hondo rolls and ninja flips. I'm going to break left. You're going to zig glide, button hook, cross, all that. Not going to happen. That's not what's going to be effective. It comes down to communication skills and that open dialogue. It's a scary thing to have that conversation with your family.
Sure it is. You
don't want to put the fear into your children when they go to bed that someone's going to come in the night. That's not what we want to do to our kids or to our people. But there is comfort in having a plan. There is, strength in numbers. And if as a family unit, you can know that you're going to work together, you'll be successful together. But if everybody panics and everybody just goes haywire, it's a guarantee more people are going to get hurt.
I grew up in the in the 70s and 80s, and fire safety in homes was really starting to become a thing that people talked about. And I remember even we had the fire departments handed out the stickers or the decals that you put on the glass of your bedroom windows that told the police or the fire department where the children were and things, right? So we talked about this stuff. And, a house fire is a scary thing to talk about, especially with kids. But somehow, as a society, we made it through that. And I think that what you're saying, this tells me that I need to, as a dad and my wife as a mom, need to sit down with our kids, and we need to talk about our safety plan in our homes. And it's fire safety, it's storm safety. We have tornadoes and things here, and it's also that, what happens if somebody were to break into the house, and it's not a scary thing. It is, but right, we're talking about this is. We don't want to frighten the kids with it. We need to come up with a plan, the same way that you would have a plan if there was a fire, and that kind of thing.
Well, just the same sort of plans they're having in school, right?
Yeah.
But at home.
It's sad to say that, but
it is different in that way.
Yeah.
And you are a great example because you've got a young toddler and you've got, 3, and they're different ages. They're at different developmental stages. So when I talk to families about gun safety and coexisting firearms and children peaceably and safely in the home,
right,
it's an evolving conversation. What you expect the teenager to do is different than what I expect the 7-year-old to do.
Yeah.
The dangerous ones are the tweens, the kids that are in that early adolescent stage, because it's not that they're going to act irrationally. They're going to try to protect you. They're going to go and insert themselves in a dangerous situation because they feel like they're protecting you. And that's the last thing you want them to do. So if you don't give those children, those young adults, let's face it, they have to behave like an adult in this environment. You can't treat them like children. You have to give them the power to be an adult and an adult experience. And you give them a job. They know what their job is. They'll do it. But if they don't know, they're going to rush to action and they're going to throw themselves right into the fray. And that's scary. And as a parent, you can't allow that. You can't let that be what happens.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really, really cognizant of developmentally where your children are, what their capabilities are. Do the older kids have responsibilities to engage with the younger kids? What's going on here?
Well, and to that point, it would seem then very necessary for a family to address this annually, really, because as your kids grow and mature, they're changing and evolving. And the plan last year isn't necessarily going to be the plan this year.
That's right.
Yeah, that's powerful. I honestly had not even begun to think about that aspect of it. But and you're right. Anybody that doubts whether or not a child would, especially the tweens, would try to insert themselves in a dangerous situation, just look at the news. How many times you see where a domestic violence thing, the child tries to take up for the mom or what have you, and then they're involved, and it's tragic. So yeah, wow, okay. Let me ask you a question then. So this is for my wife. She's asked this scenario several times of me, and she really wanted me to ask you this tonight. Scenario being that she might be at a city park, greenway type thing, playground equipment, walking paths, things like that. And so if somebody were to approach her, a violent actor, the criminal, to approach her while she's got our 1-year-old and our 4-year-old with her, how would you recommend that she handle that? Because it seems like there's two different schools of thought. One is to send the kids away from her and to draw the threat away from them. The other is to go full mama bear mode and protect them, stand and fight. Is there a one size fits all answer here, or is it as dynamic as the situation seems?
So I wish there was a one size fits all, and I can use myself as an example. I have 2 kids. They are 16 months apart in age. They're very close. They think they're twins. I mean, they grew up thinking they were twins, but developmentally, they're as radically different as you're going to get. So my strategy when I'm out in public with them is my son's in my left hand because I got to hang on to that little guy. All right. He's the younger of the 2, but man, he's a wild child. So I've got to hang on to him. He's less likely to listen to mom. And in my right hand, that's where I've got my daughter. She is a mini me. She will do exactly what I tell her to do. She takes direction. She knows when mommy is in full, wolf mode. And this is what's happening now. My son, on the other hand, will question it, and doubt will instill, and we don't know what he's going to do. So I need my daughter in my drawing hand. I need my son in my support hand, because I'm going to throw her behind something and get her out of the way. And I'm hanging on to him because I can't let him be a variable I can't control. So your strategies for your children are largely dependent on your children. And you've got to be very aware of what your children are and are not capable of doing. If you have an infant, I am not putting an infant down. It's not going to happen. It's just, I'm not going to be separated from them. It's not a reality.
Right.
So, there's things that you can do to familiarize yourself there. Really, if you think through, again, your kind of daily setup. Are you a left-handed shooter? Or are you a right-handed shooter? Are you cross draw? Are you strong side? Are you, where are you carrying? How would you get that? What do you typically have on your person? Is it a diaper bag? Is it the kid and a diaper bag and another kid? Let's just, pack mule ourselves up here. I know I have done it. Strategize that out more than you can strategize the violent actor, as William April so accurately calls them, because they are unpredictable. There is no way that we can game it. But if you can game your own personal strategies and situations with your kids involved, you'll be far more successful.
Well, and you mentioned something that just talks about the depth to which you need to think about this. You think about ahead of time which hand your children, which child's going to be on which hand, and then which hand is involved in drawing the weapon. And you've made a conscious decision to position the child that you can let go of on your weapon hand. That way you can release him or her and send them off to their spot, and then take care of business if you have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It is that involved. And, older parents are the same. Am I going to abandon, my 77-year-old dad and run away to get off the X and draw fire? No, I'm not leaving him.
Right.
You've got to be kidding. It's not going to happen. These are the people that are the most important to me in my life.
Right.
Now, if the environment dictates that's what I have to do, that's what I'm going to do. But it's not my first go-to response. I'm not going to sprint away from the most valuable things in my world.
Sure. Well, William April mentioned the last time, again, not knowing what that violent actor is going to do, you might move off the X and the violent actor may stand right there, and now he has a new victim, and that person's unarmed because you just left them, right? And he talked about having triggers, the mental triggers that you have that say, when this line is crossed, this is what I'm going to do. And it's just amazing the common thread that begins to weave through these conversations that we've had with our guests. And it all adds up, and it validates and supports, these conversations. Each conversation supports the other. And it's just so good to be able to look at these threads and say, hey, look, here it is. Once again, it's to plan ahead and know what your triggers are and know what your game plan is going to be if a bad thing occurs.
Yeah.
And then you've added the extra layer, the extra dimension to this of, be willing to think on your feet, because your plan may not look like the event itself.
Everybody has a plan, and then it's gone. So
yeah.
As soon as it begins, that plan is gone. So, again, it comes down to, have you trained in choreography in your range work? Are you really good at dancing the waltz, and that's all you know?
Yeah.
Are you a parrot, or are you able to be improvisational? Because that's what it's going to take. That's the difference between competition and street fighting. Competition is choreographed. It's choreographed with some room for interpretation in how you execute the stage, of course. There's an art to that. But it is not improv.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to be improv to live in the real world.
So I know from having read your bio that you have a background in martial arts. And so there's a difference between going through katas and also going into a fight.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about. The first casualty of any fight is the plan. And the plan is dead as soon as the fight begins. And at that point, can you improvise? Yeah. Can you be as dynamic as the situation, or are you going to revert to square range shooting at a paper target that's not trying to hurt you?
Well, think about it. How many range habits get good people hurt? How many up drills from low ready, people shooting and instantly snap that gun down, exposing their chest. There's all kinds of things that we do habitually at the range that do not translate. They're very polite, and the range is a very polite environment. The real world is not polite, and it is not going to be, there is no etiquette in that world. So, you want to be able to be you want to be able to take full control and mastery of the situation. And that requires you to be the person that's capable of making the decisions. Because again, no one's going to be there to tell you which drill to run, which dance to dance. You're going to have to pull that out from nowhere. And it's got to be such a part of you that your execution, your delivery of that solution is so much a part of who you are that you can have that higher order thought process where you're thinking proactively. You're not just reacting. Right. Reactionary responses with a firearm are scary and get good people hurt.
Yeah.
And that's, that. And are you capable of getting that level? Yes. You do not have to be SEALs Team 6 to do this well. Again, if you can drive a car and, maintain having a license, meaning you're a safe driver and, you don't have crazy insurance bills because you know what I'm talking about. You're a safe driver in our community.
Right.
You can effectively carry concealed. You can do this. You have it within your scope of skills already. We just have to give you that new tool.
Right. I wonder how many of our listeners have heard the phrase of some variation of becoming subconsciously competent, and they interpret that to mean that there's no longer any thinking involved in it. And right, and right, it's scary, right? And I think that, I was reading through Varg Freeborn's book, and towards the very end of it, he starts talking about developing that subconscious competence. But he draws a line in there, and he's talking about, and a good trainer, probably you as well, right? You're talking about the mechanics of getting the gun on target and finding your sights and doing reloads and such. But then that frees up the conscious mind to deal with the problem, the fight.
The inconsistencies.
Yeah, the inconsistencies, the dynamics. So, I think that I just wanted to point that out. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about you talking, to go through the high-speed operator type classes, the shoot houses, and you get to hang out with these folks that are gunfighters. They do this for real. The law enforcement officers, the military members, that they're bringing this knowledge back, and then you're distilling it and bringing out the pertinent parts for practical everyday life. And one of those practical things is just to not get so wrapped up in the mechanics, the robotic mechanics of doing the same thing the same way over and over and over. The FBI learned that lesson very painfully when some of their agents had defaulted to, putting spent shells from revolvers in their pockets and that kind of thing, instead of just dumping the cylinder on the concrete and getting that reload in there and going back to work quickly. They died putting empty shells in their pockets because that's what they were trained to do over and over and over. So they learned and they evolved. They said, okay, that's bad. That's bad. We don't do that anymore. We do that after the fight. But, you're talking about bringing these hard-won lessons back to the civilian and making it relevant and practical. It's cool. Yeah.
That's the goal as best I can. That's fun for me, but I don't have anything to offer. And there's too many questions like what you just described about, hey, when I'm out with my family at XYZ, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle that situation? And, just like you don't have to have a Harvard medical degree to learn how to apply a tourniquet, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. But somebody's got to spur you on to say, if you're carrying concealed, that's great. But are you prepared to continue to fight to keep the people you love alive?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then why are you not carrying a tourniquet or 5?
Right.
Why have you not taken a Dark Angel medical class or minimally a Stop the Bleed program?
Right.
If you're willing to spend all this money on all these guns, that's fantastic. But in a gun fight, there is an exchange of rounds.
Yeah. And
that exchange of rounds in and around the people that I love means if I didn't get hit, the likelihood of one of them getting hit is very high. So I have to be willing to do what I need to do to keep them alive beyond those 15 seconds, or for a civilian, even less,
Right.
Maybe 5 to 6 seconds where that exchange is happening.
Right.
Because that's the rest of your life. You live with that.
Yeah. And it's the rest of their life, and it may only be measured in minutes if you don't have the knowledge to take care of an injury.
Exactly.
Yeah, you mentioned another thing in your bio, and I think I read it out to our audience as we were introducing you, that that the first responder is going to be you. And we've talked about this before, Mark, and it was very early on. Even Jason Demo, we had him on talking about the necessity of tourniquets, and that was the thing to learn. But for some stupid reason, I don't know why even still the Second Amendment community we're trying to get this message out there. I think we're all on the rooftop shouting, and it's just not being processed by the audience yet. But the medical training, the tourniquets and stuff, it may not sound as sexy as going to the range and shooting in a shoot house, but it's more relevant. And I'm with you. I don't know how we can get that message out, but I've got to be very passionate about it lately. And the classes are out there.
It can be the new cool kid thing. And I want it to be the new cool kid thing. I want to see a med kit on every shooter's belt.
Yeah.
When I go to Live for Your Die shoot.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I would love to see that. That will tell me we're winning, because that just means our level of knowledge, our pool of knowledge as a community has leveled up. So, there are things that should become trendy. And if we can help them become trendy, we're doing a great service to our community.
Well, your kids can't take a gun to school for sure. They can't even take a drawing of one to school, but they can absolutely take a tourniquet. And, that's a thing that Mark and I've talked about this before. Stop buying iPads for classrooms and put tourniquets in the classrooms. And, I hate the fact that we even have to talk about it, but we have to deal with the world that we live in. And tourniquets save lives, period. And they're so cheap. They're so cheap.
And that, it's just not, that's just the thing. It's just like, it's not take all the iPads out. Just take one less iPad out. And how many tourniquets is that? You know what I mean? Like, and I wish there was some data, that goes back to some of these some of these injuries that, ended up being deaths, some of these could probably have been saved had there been a tourniquet in-house.
Yeah.
Well, that's a guarantee. There's only so much we can speculate about that. But I had a great conversation with Lynn Davis of Dark Angel Medical, and she tells a great story about her little girl who has grown up or in that culture of, you're going to keep blood in the body, kiddo. That's what we do. That's what our family does.
Right.
Our whole world is associated with keeping blood in people's bodies where it belongs. And she had a Dark Angel med kit in her backpack. And there was an accident in the schoolyard where two of the school buses rubbed against each other and crushed one of the little kids who happened to be one of her friends.
Oh, no.
Wow. She had that with her. She was able to go and start the process well before any of the adults were.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she's a child.
She's a hero.
That kid, I adore that child.
Yeah.
That's good parenting.
Yeah,
and that's a child that's good. And she's going to do great things because that was what her family taught her was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And she did it.
Well, a friend of mine, Jason, his Instagram is Jason Demo. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, Tatiana, but he's got a fairly prominent, 10 to 15,000 Instagram, something like that. And he did a video where he walked in to his daughter's bedroom, who was paying zero attention, reading a book, sitting on her floor, had fake blood on his pant leg, threw a tourniquet on the floor and dropped onto the floor. And then she dropped everything and got the tourniquet on him. And I think she's 7. And got the tourniquet on it, turned the windlass, got it all set up, and bang. And the thing went viral. It was 25 million views in a week. It was amazing. And the thing about it is there was a bunch of people talking crap about exposing your kid to this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? How can you take that stance on this? It blows my mind. How can you take that stance?
Well, I've heard it. I bring my daughter she loves the range. She loves the community that exists at the range. There are lots of little kids who are there with their parents that are doing what we do, which is making safe children. with firearms,
Mhm.
and knowledgeable, skilled, and talented kids that can talk accurately without the cultural lingo, which is so incorrect. And I'll share a moment of pride where my daughter has done something well, and I'm a proud parent, and she's exhibited all of the things that we hope to have exhibited for safety and conscientiousness, and she's done a good job with the exercise. And you do get the people out there who feel that you're breeding mini soldiers and, that it's inappropriate and you're promoting a culture of violence. And you ask any of these kids what it means to own a gun, and they're going to start with safety and responsibility. And they're going to speak to you in a vernacular that you will be shocked out because it's the right one. It's a positive one.
That is, Mark, I was thinking the audience might assume that we've gone off on a Shooter's Nation tangent again with the tourniquets, but really what we're talking about here is that home defense plan and preparing your family. And that's part of the equation. That's something that almost anybody in your family can probably participate in, even if they're not going to be armed. And how can they help? Absolutely. How can they help be the first responders for the family? And, I know that with my kids, Tatiana, if I give my daughter a project and I say, this is your assignment, this is what you're going to learn how to do, and this is yours, you're going to own this, she will go after it. Even as a 4-year-old, she is intense, man. She will go after that and make it hers. If I teach her how to do a tourniquet, she'll master that. She might not have the hand strength to crank the windlass down tight, but I bet if she could get the thing on me, I could help her, or somebody else could, and so this is, it's regrettable that people look at it sometimes and think, oh, you're creating these little mini soldiers, but no, we're just kind of equipping our kids and our families to deal with the world we live in,
Yeah. And with a positive attitude.
Yeah.
This isn't a militant, scary, apocalyptic attitude. This is a really positive, I'm going to keep people safe attitude, and I'm going to make sure that I can stop a boo-boo attitude. And that's what we want. Would you shun somebody from nurturing a child who wanted to become a doctor?
Right.
To save lives? No, you would applaud that. Well, we're doing the same thing when it comes to, that whole family philosophy of what is it going to take to keep us okay through the entire experience.
Yeah.
And a big portion of that is the firearm. And a big portion of that is your exit strategy and your communication skills. These are Boy Scout. This is Boy Scout stuff. This is not, tactical ninja stuff. This was a part of American culture up until about 30 years ago. And we saw a big shift, and we're just returning to it. We just don't know how to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, you're right. We are returning to it. I was thinking about that for the longest while, first aid was a core tenet of you learned it in school in health or PE or what have you, or you learned it in the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. And it wasn't tactical and super scary, and people didn't look down on it then. They applauded it. Heck, we gave our kids merit badges for it and congratulate them for learning it. So, all right. Well, so as we narrow down on the end of the episode, I really wanted to ask you a couple of other things. And I hate to move away from the home defense conversation. I think we could do this. We could do a whole episode on that.
I did have a question too regarding the home part, though, if you were going to skew away from there.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question about barricading and your thoughts on barricading. And there's even some theories out there of having like lock boxes with firearms in the barricaded room, even if that room happens to be the child's room. Mm-hmm. And what your opinions are on all of that.
Well, let's put it real simply. Depending on the architectural structure of your house and where your kids are in relation to you, and everybody thinks it's going to happen when you're all asleep in the middle of the night. And, I don't have the statistics on this, but we're seeing a lot of daytime home invasions when the man of the house is expected to be away. And, the reality is you're not all going to be nicely tucked into your rooms, into your beds when this happens. You're going to be in the playroom. You're going to be in the kitchen and the living room. You'll be folding laundry. You're going to be whatever, taking a shower. So wherever you store your home defense firearm, it needs to be accessible to you. And if for my home, barricading probably isn't going to work out because I'm at the end of the hall. So my room would hopefully be the barricade room. Everybody else's flows forward towards the point of entries, and we're on 2 levels.
Yeah.
So barricading doesn't work in my house. And if I could collect everyone from all corners of the home into one space without bypassing the home invader, that would be wonderful. That's not real. So smaller families, single child households, that may be a viable option. Or if all your kids are in one room, adjacent to yours, you may decide to hold and lock down that hallway and barricade in that hallway and that threshold. Again, what does your structure look like, and what are the needs of the people in that structure? I'd love to not have to dive in deeper and leave them abandoned behind me.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to over-penetrate into that space, and I also don't want to draw them totally to me. So if there's somebody in my home, we're going to deal with it, and we're going to deal with it wherever they're at by the time I get my gun and I find myself presenting the situation with what I've got. Yeah. It's never going to be clean, never going to be clean. And my kids are in 2 different rooms. Which room do you barricade? And do I want my kids jumping out in the hallway?
Right.
And everyone's trying to flood to this one, kindergartners on the soccer ball style, trying to get to fumbling all over each other while you're trying to solve the problem with a gun in your hand.
Right.
So it's a messy, messy, messy thing. If you're the only person in the household and you're not a deep sleeper and you wake up when you hear that something wrong sound and you're able to lock down the second floor where everybody is sleeping and hold that stairwell, more power to you. Mm-hmm. Keep your people behind you. Keep muzzles between the people you love and the problem. If you're lucky enough to do it, do it.
Yeah, I was thinking about one of the videos I saw that you did with Steve Fisher. You go over house clearing, right? Yeah. As a couple, and you said something that I thought was pretty funny, but it actually I think is very salient. One of the advice pieces that you gave at the very end was, draw the blinds, close the curtains so that your neighbors aren't looking at you like, oh, you crazy people running through your house with guns. Game planning it ahead of time. But this is something that I've done in my own house, which was my family wasn't home. I went to the front door of my house. I started the timer on my watch, the stopwatch, and I just kind of pretended that I kicked in the door. And then how quickly could I get from there to the master bedroom running in as if I were a home invader? And it was less than 10 seconds. Right. I was able to move through the bottom story of my house in less than 10 seconds and get to the master bedroom. That was for me a baseline. Can I get to my weapon? Will I be awake and alert and process the siren from the alarm, the noise, the chaos, and get to my weapon in 10 seconds or less? Right. And from there, that's where my plans, I backed into my plan from there. And we're 2-story house here as well. And so not everybody's on the same story. And, what we've ended up doing is I have made sure that there are magazines. I don't leave guns where the kids can get to them in other parts of the house, but there are magazines of ammo in other parts of the house that if the fight becomes protracted, or if I can get to an area where I've managed to sequester my family, man, we can keep you busy for a while because we got ammo. So, it's I don't know. I would just encourage our listeners to game plan it and maybe start with that. Start with your front door, start with your back door, start with the entrance from your garage or whatever. How quickly can you get into the house and move through it as an aggressor? And how much time would that leave you to respond? Mm-hmm. Oh, me. Okay. Can we ask you a couple of quick questions to kind of wrap things up? All right. What are some things that you could tell the female listener that would make them a better customer when it comes to selecting training for themselves? Maybe, selecting the right classes and also selecting the right trainers. And maybe on that second one, like character traits that they should be looking for the trainer.
Certainly. I think the first thing is don't be swayed by Insta-famous or social media famous individuals. Some of the most impressive instructors that I have worked with have been very quiet professionals because they're still active in their fields. And so they're not out there trying to make, the 100,000 Insta likes or whatever thing. That is not a marker of quality. Okay. It's a marker of successful marketing and self-promotion. Yeah. So You're looking for somebody that is in line with your philosophies. If you're going to go and all you want to do is learn how to get comfortable with this thing, you're not going to go take a class from somebody who's teaching you how to face shoot zombies when the apocalypse comes and wear plate carriers and all that. That's not where you're at. Don't dive in there. Like that's a very different type of world. So look for somebody that's in line, that you feel comfortable with, one, that you feel like you could ask questions to and have a conversation with. You don't feel like you could have a conversation with that instructor, it's probably not the right person for you, right? So start there and then be willing to push beyond your comfort zone, right? There are trainers out there who look terrifying and intimidating. Steve Fisher, Super Dave Harrington. These two guys look like, the world ended. You want them on your team. Like those are the guys you want. But the reality is they have hearts of gold. They will jump through small, fiery hoops for people who want the knowledge and want to invest in themselves. They will go out of their way to open doors for you. So push outside of your comfort zone just a little bit, but do your homework on these people. Make sure that they have the proper credentials, that they're certified and insured. Make sure that they require certain things, PPE and med kit stuff when you're looking at the course descriptions. Make sure if you ask them for proof of insurance, they don't blink an eye. Absolutely. What do you need? Like this. None of us are ashamed to prove to you that we're pulled together.
Right.
Absolutely happy to. And don't be afraid of reaching out in an email or asking for a phone call if you're unsure. Because again, if we're in this for the students, we're going to take the time to talk with you about it and answer your questions and be there, because we're in it for you. We're not in it for us.
Right. Well, golly, you've pretty much answered my second question, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. So along the same lines, what advice would you give? I mean, obviously, you can't clone yourself. You can't be everywhere at once and train everybody as much as I know you would love to. But what can you tell the training community to make them better at being accessible and attentive and focused on providing what the female shooter needs?
Yeah. The best thing that I can say is please stop trying to impose your will and your doctrine upon your audience. Each individual shooter is unique. Women are particularly unique. So be prepared for the older lady to have more arthritic hands than the man, right? Be prepared to work with somebody at their level, to answer their questions and tweak your technique to find what is most successful for them. The goal is, at the end of the day, to have a body of students who can be successful on their own without you babysitting them. So if that is tweaking your grip technique just a little bit so that that person who has the double jointed thumb and has this awesome thumb that can basically bend over backwards, but don't have the strength to manipulate that mechanical safety, you've given them another solution for that. And they can then utilize that solution to be just as effective. You've got to be malleable and really attentive, and you've got to care enough about people in your class to give them what they need, not just impose and the one way, because that's not going to work for everyone.
Yeah Wow. I mean, that's you could have offered. You should charge for that information, right? Because what you've kind of said, you've admonished the student to be flexible and be allow the instructor to push them out of their comfort zone, and a good instructor is going to do that, right? That's the point of going to get trainings, to get better. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is it's almost more important. Maybe it is more important for the instructor to be more flexible and more open-minded even than the student is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're going to fix the gross safety errors. We're going to fix the things that are technically incorrect. But there are minor changes that can yield incredible results for a person. And all the light bulbs go off, and suddenly they are a rock star. But it took you meeting them at their level and being really attentive to those little things. And if you can pick up on those little things and give them what they need, either technically or mentally, man, it is the most rewarding thing as a teacher.
That is awesome. I can't really think of a better place to end a great conversation than there. And I don't even want to end the conversation, but we have to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This is phenomenal. We wanted to introduce you to our audience and get to know you. And I personally can't think of any better way to have done it than this. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Absolutely. This was fun. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for putting this program together. I really appreciate it. I think there are a lot of people who are going to really enjoy this format and appreciate the people you bring on and the conversations you have.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. This is one of the most humbling things I do every week, is to sit down with good people that are interested in making other good people safe. And it's a big responsibility, and we try. So we can't do it without people like you, though. I really appreciate your time and your expertise, and you're willing to share both of those things with us and with our audience. My wife, Sandy, is absolutely going to want to have you join her and Kristen sometime for a ladies episode. And I'm sure they'll rock it more than we did. So I can't wait to listen to that one. It'll be better. Mark, have you got anything that you want to mention or ask before we conclude?
Definitely something I want to mention. We have, in a couple of weeks, an event here in New Hampshire called the Live Free or Die Shoot.
Yeah.
Tatiana's coming down from Maine. Squared Away Customs will be there. A bunch of other awesome businesses from the New England and beyond area are there. And it's an all-day shooting event in Keene, New Hampshire. There are still some tickets available. It will be a sold-out event, as it is every single year. You can get all the information you need at freedomhillgear.com. That's freedomhillgear.com, and then you can go to the events and click on it. It's the Live Free or Die Shoot. Once again, Keene, New Hampshire. Definitely go check it out. Tatiana's going to be teaching there, as well as a bunch of other guest instructors. There's going to be lots of vendors and machine gun shoots and all sorts of awesome. There's a 3-gun shoot. I think last year there was a simunitions shoot house thing set up. I mean, just a really great day of 2A friendly fun and information and guidance and training, and there's some medical stuff. It's just a fantastic event, and I'm really looking forward to it too. I think it's on the 15th. Is that right? 15th?
Yes, it is.
Yep, September 15th. Keene, New Hampshire. Definitely check it out. freedomhillgear.com.
Yeah, if you're in the Northeast and that's in any way accessible to you, by all means you should. I am stunned that thing still has tickets available for it. We've talked.
People drag their feet every single year. I'm really in close with the event and help do a bunch of the stuff, and we keep a good pulse on the tickets. But there's always stragglers that wait till the last minute, like anything, I guess. So.
Well, I know that Robin, those guys, man, their hearts are really poured into this thing, and they want to see it successful, and it's awesome. Yep. So he's doing a great thing by pulling this together, and anybody that lives nearby should take advantage of it. Well, all right. So, Tatiana, how can folks connect with you after the show? Have you got any classes coming up or anything like that you'd like to mention to the audience?
Yeah, I think I've got about 40 classes left this year across the country, California to Michigan, to Florida, Texas, everything in between, all the way up to Maine and New Hampshire. So there's quite a few events left to participate in. My website, I made it real hard. It's myname.com, tatianawhitlock.com. And that's how to find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's just me. There's nothing fancy. There's no cool company name. It's just me. So again, please feel free to reach out, ask questions, participate, and engage in any of those forums. The website has a wealth of information and upcoming opportunities and wonderful relationships I have with partners and sponsors like Agency Arms, Nighthawk Customs, Mean Gene Leather, Tough Products, and Aimpoint. There's a lot more wonderful, wonderful companies I'm either professionally and formally involved with, or that I just love what they do and how they do their work. So there's a lot of good stuff and discount codes there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
There you go. Right. That's fantastic. If any of our female listeners or male listeners with wives, girlfriends, etc., want to get in touch with you to learn more about the Girl in a Gun, is it okay for them to do that also?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. agirlinagun.org is the website. You're welcome to reach out to me, to visit my website. There's tons of links back there. And then I think the A Girl in a Gun blog is one of the quietest resources. That it's just the sleeper.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Sign up for the newsletter. The wealth of information they're pumping out to their recipients is phenomenal, and it's quality. It's good material. So take advantage of what's out there. I mean, they are all about making a safer community and happy gun owners and people who want to go shoot.
Well, and spoiler alert for you guys, I guarantee there's good information there for you to read too. I've looked through it, and if you want to know how to broach these conversations with the women in your lives, that's a good start. It's good to arm yourself with some of that knowledge. Tatiana, we'll be glad to put all these different things in our show notes, links to your website, links to Girls in the Gun, et cetera. We'll make sure that that's all in there for our listeners, so that if they, they're driving down the road, they don't have to worry about, stopping right now and jotting it down. We'll put it in the show notes, and you can click on it later, and that'll be an easy way for you to get to these things. For just the normal closing business, folks, we're really barreling down on the 6-month anniversary. The next show that we do is looking like it's going to be a live show, and we'll have some audience participation there, we hope. Not that we hope that you'll watch and be involved. I know that you will, but it's just we hope that we can make it interactive, and that's going to be fun. It's like juggling chainsaws, but I think we're up to the task this time. Those of you that support the show, we really appreciate that. If you don't, you'd like to, you don't have to, but we always appreciate it. Head over to shootersnation.com and look for the donate button. Mark, I did not change the donate button this time. I couldn't. We did slip the meme in the last show notes.
Don't get me started.
I know.
So,
Tatiana, we're terrible men, actually. I mean, we're like 12 years old on the inside. So we slipped a terrible meme into the show notes last week, and I have not yet heard anybody threatening me in email for that one. So I guess we were successful, or nobody clicked it, or nobody cares. I don't know. It's whatever. So anyway, folks, head over to shootersnation.com. You can hit the store if you want a logoed hat or shirt. Again, adding some cold weather gear there soon. Also, if you've got any ideas for future shows, shootersnation.com, you can send those to us there. Guess what? Shootersnation.com, keep mentioning it, has the Mail Blast mailing list. You can sign up. And also be sure to head over to squaredawaycustoms.com after the show to connect with guys like Mark. Mark, what is it that you guys do at Squared Away Customs?
Custom kayaks for most any type of carry you want. But as always, use Shooters Nation coupon code to save a little bit of money. And we're also a full-line Polymer 80 dealer.
I was going to say,
really popular stuff these days.
You've got that going right now. You got a special on the Polymer 80. You order a Polymer 80 frame, and they can take advantage of the Polymer 80 tailored holster for that frame. So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Very cool. You'd think that I don't know, that seemed kind of rough, but I'm ad-libbing at this point because I didn't put this in my notes. So,
that's good.
It's all right.
Great.
All right, yeah, very good. Yeah, all right. Awesome. All right, everybody. Again, Tatiana, thanks for being with us. Mark, thanks for taking time out of your family vacation from the secret lair in undisclosed Michigan location. Terrible witness protection witness. You're done for if you ever go into that. Yeah. All right. Everybody, thanks again for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed having the conversation. We will talk to you again next week. In the meantime, be safe out there.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.